So guys, ever since I've moved into this new studio space, I've been meaning to do a desk setup tour. One of my first videos when I started this channel a little over 3 years ago was in fact a desk setup, and a few more of them have followed over the years, but this time I wanted it to be special. I wanted to build my ultimate dream desk setup. The problem with pursuing the perfect desk setup is that there's no such thing and it will never be fully finished. So I finally decided to get my act together and just film it as it is now, because whether it's perfect or not, this is by far the best setup I've ever had. So let's do this, let's ramble.
Hold up, things go wild when I pull up. They all on me like it wants.
Hey, what is up guys? It's great to see you all again, and if you're new here, I'm Patrick and this is where I ramble about tech and other stuff. So yeah, like I said in the intro, once you start getting into desk setups, there's no turning back. You will constantly be tweaking and upgrading your setup until you realize it will never be finished. But that's okay, because new tech is coming out all the time, and for us tech heads, it's great fun to keep optimizing our workspaces. Now, just really quickly, this video is not meant to be some bragging session. Some of the items are quite expensive, and I want you to know that I didn't just go out and buy everything in one go. I started out with a very humble desk setup with mostly low budget stuff or even used tech, and I slowly started upgrading it as the channel grew. I invested every penny the channel generated right back into it, and because I'm a tech channel, I was also fortunate enough to have been sent some of these products for review by some of the brands. With that said, I hope you enjoy the video and maybe my setup might give you some inspiration for your own. Right, so when I moved into this place, I basically just transplanted all of my old stuff from my tiny studio in our spare room of our house to this studio space. But as the studio started coming together, my desk setup started to stick out like a sore thumb. So I decided to finally bite the bullet and build my dream desk setup. Of course, I had to take all the old stuff down first, including these cheap foam panels I once found on Amazon. I thought they would help improve my audio, but ultimately they just looked pretty. This time, I decided to buy some proper acoustic panels, and I'd seen these beautiful ones on Parker Wallbeck's channel that I've been salivating over ever since I started my channel. These panels are made by a company called Geek Acoustics, and to my surprise, they're actually based here in Europe. They have amazing looking wood artwork facings, and the backside is made of a thick acoustic material. After repainting over some of the damage caused by removing the foam panels, I used a laser leveler to measure and drill the holes to make sure the panels are hung evenly. Instead of sticking an extension cord to the bottom of my desk, I opted to mount a double-sided surge protector on the back of my desk this time. That way, all my permanent stuff could be plugged into the bottom for cable management, keeping the top half free in case I need to plug some random stuff. After removing all of my old stuff, I gave the IKEA countertop a good wipe, as it still looks immaculate and can be used again for this setup. The desk itself is the good old IKEA YouTube special: 2 Alex drawers and a Carlby kitchen countertop. Once cleared, I could start populating the desk with the items I had selected for this dream setup. The result is what you see behind me, and before I take you through each item, I really need to shout out Illusion Neon for making that custom neon sign for me. I've been wanting to shout them out for such a long time. I'm sure you've seen this thing in many of my recent videos, but for some reason, I kept forgetting about it. Well, thank you Jennifer from Illusion Neon for sending this over, and guys, please check out the link in the description. They make some pretty incredible stuff. The desk chair I'm using is the autonomous ErgoChair Plus with the white frame and naked gray TPE. I chose this model without fabric because it helps prevent getting a sweaty back and because it just looks great. I've been using their ErgoChair Pro for a couple of years and I'm very satisfied with that, so I decided to give this one a try as well, mainly because of how well it fits with this desk setup. It is super adjustable as we're used to from Autonomous and very comfortable, so I have no problems working in this chair for several hours. So powering this entire setup is my 14-inch MacBook Pro. I maxed it out completely when I bought it. It's an absolute beast, and I felt zero need to upgrade to the M2 model. I went for the 14-inch model because it's much easier for travel than the 16-inch, and here in the studio, it's docked 99% of the time anyway. To do that, I use the Book Arc by 12 South. This thing has been around for years, but it's still in production, and for good reason. It just works. The MacBook is connected to the centerpiece of this desk, and by far the most expensive item in this setup, and that is of course the Apple Studio display. And yes, it is the nano texture glass version with tilt and height adjustable stand. I really love this display. It is absolutely perfect for this Mac heavy setup, and it's not that I regret buying it, but I don't know if I would recommend it because it's grossly overpriced, especially in this particular configuration, and I think it's ridiculous for Apple to charge an extra $400 for a tilt and height adjustable stand that most monitors these days have anyway. And for that reason, I'm really happy that BenQ reached out to me recently to try out their PD3220U, because it turns out to be a really great alternative for the studio display at less than half of the price and with some interesting additional functionality. With its 32 inches, it is bigger than the studio display, which measures 27 inches. It is a super crispy 4830 by 2160 UHD 4K 10-bit IPS matte panel. Just like the studio display, it has a 60 Hz refresh rate and it's HDR10 compatible. There's a large variety of ports including HDMI and a DisplayPort, but if you want that studio display-like setup, the Thunderbolt 3 cable is the way to go. Plus, the Thunderbolt 3 connectivity means you can daisy chain the monitor. The cover will help get those cables out of the way very nicely, but don't worry because the monitor has some extra I/O on the side for that easy access. It has a minimal design with super thin bezels that fits a Mac setup perfectly. The monitor comes with this really nifty accessory called the hotkey puck. I'm sure marketing team had a really good laugh with this one. Anyway, this lets you switch between different settings and even different setups using a KVM switch. Just like the studio display, this monitor is aimed at creatives like designers and editors, so it's extremely color accurate and there's a whole host of different color profiles, but by far my favorite one for a Mac setup is MBook. As the name suggests, this color profile will look very familiar to Mac users, and it really works. And guess what? It is tilt and height adjustable at $0 extra. The BenQ PD3220U retails at $10.99, whereas the studio display with tilt and height adjustable stand and nano texture display goes for $22.99. Again, I genuinely love my studio display, but this monitor at that price point is hard to beat. Thanks again to BenQ for sending this over. There's a link in the description if you're interested. Next to the studio display, you'll find my iPad Pro. If you're a regular to the channel, you've probably heard me say that my 12.9-inch iPad Pro has been collecting dust, but this is a fantastic use case for it. It is large enough to be used as a second display, but even better as a standalone unit, which can be controlled using Apple's Universal Control. The iPad is attached magnetically to this awesome desk arm by Cooxiu. I only recently found out about this brand, but this has already become one of my favorite iPad accessories of this year. As you can see, there's a case on my iPad with an integrated USB-C plug. I will show you why that is later on in the video. By the way, if you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe. I post new videos at least once a week, sometimes more, and a sub to the channel would be much appreciated. Now, because only one of the USB-C ports on the back of the studio display is actually a Thunderbolt port, and I don't want to use more than one cable to hook up my MacBook Pro, I invested in a CalDigit TS4 Thunderbolt hub. It's not cheap, but I do consider it the holy grail of docks. It has all the ports I could possibly need on the back. It has a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, 4 USB-A ports, 3 Thunderbolt ports, audio ports, USB-C ports, and even a display port. I also really appreciate that the host port is on the back. I simply do not understand why most other docks would put the host port on the front, because it means that you always have that ugly cable sticking out of it running into your computer. Anyway, there are some ports on the front as well for easy access, and very important for creators, an SD and a micro SD card slot. And because it has these ports, I decided to mount mine underneath my desk to save some space. For me, the most valuable thing is the added Thunderbolt ports, because I do use Thunderbolt accessories other than the studio display, such as this Apollo Twin X audio interface that controls my microphone as well as the computer audio going into my external speakers. Now, I have to be completely honest here. This thing is complete overkill for my desk. You can get great results out of something much cheaper like a Scarlett 2i2, but I've wanted one of these ever since I saw it on Marques Brownlee's desk a few years ago, and now that the initial pain of investment has passed, I enjoy it very much. The preamp is out of this world. I love the tactile feel of the volume knob, and it just looks amazing. Connected to it are my Yamaha HS5s. These are not crazy expensive, but still they're very popular in the music production industry. And hey, what's good enough for Phineas is good enough for me. The reason I chose reference monitors over regular speakers is because I do like to edit without headphones from time to time, and these give a very accurate representation. Plus, the white matches the rest of my setup. Obviously, there are times that you just need to use headphones while editing, and my go-to headphones for that have been the Rode NTH 100s. I've used Audio-Technica M50s, even some Beyerdynamics, but I prefer these Rodes. They sound great, they're super comfortable, and compared to other high-end headphones, they're not expensive at all. I love this extended orange cable going into my Apollo Twin, and I recently swapped my Grovemate stand for this cheap desk hook I found on Amazon. It's super convenient, and when I'm not using my headphones, it even rotates under my desk. My microphone is a Shure MV7, which is the little brother of the industry standard, the Shure SM7B. This is the white limited edition model, which looks great and fits in nicely with the white theme I have going on. It does have a USB option, but I prefer using the XLR cable to run it into my Apollo. It's attached to a Rode PSA-1 Plus mic arm. It is the successor to the original and very popular PSA-1 arm, and while a lot of people don't seem to like the white branding, it was actually one of the main reasons for me to choose this particular arm. This funny looking white controller thing is the TourBox Elite. This is the newer Bluetooth version of the TourBox Neo, and I use it for all of my video editing. The customizable keys replace all of my most used keyboard shortcuts, which means my left hand barely ever leaves the TourBox during my edits, and I cannot tell you how much more efficient this has made me. When I'm not using it, it sits on the base of my Elgato Keylight Air. This is one of the few things left from my old desk setup because it just works so well, and it provides me with all the light I need for my video calls. This is a very dark space with almost no natural light, and having a light like that makes all the difference for my calls. Normally it's controlled via an app on my Mac, but Elgato recently sent me their new Stream Deck Plus in white obviously, which I programmed to control the light using tactile buttons. This little device might be the most underestimated desk hack out there. It's pretty much standard kit for any streamer who will use it to manage their live streams, but since this is essentially just a bunch of programmable hotkeys, I programmed mine to become a productivity booster. I use it to manage my emails, my Zoom calls, social media, Notion. I have my most used emojis on here, and I even created a custom button for quick speed tests. What is new about this model is the programmable knobs. So not only can I switch my light on and off, but I can also tweak the brightness and temperature very accurately using the knobs. If you haven't got one of these, I can highly recommend it. The webcam I use for my video calls and even my streams is the Opal C1. I recently did a dedicated video about this camera because it can do so much, it's hard to explain in a few words, but the most important things is of course the image quality, which is absolutely top-notch, to a point where it's actually hard to distinguish from an actual mirrorless camera. Fun fact, MKBHD is one of the early investors in this thing. And of course I'm using the white one for this setup. I do want to give a quick shout out to Insta360 because they too make a fantastic webcam and I find myself switching between them. My Insta360 link is currently used in my home office. Next to the Stream Deck is this low-profile travel charger by ESR. The reason I'm using a travel charger is the small footprint. It has the same charging capacity as their desktop models, it charges 3 devices at once, but it is the only one that fits right below my studio display. Perfect. My keyboard and mouse combo are the Logitech MX Master 3S and the MX Mechanical Mini, obviously in white. I've been using different versions of the MX Master mouse for years. It's simply the best mouse available on the market today. What I like about the keyboard is that it's a nice middle ground between a low-profile keyboard and a mechanical one, as well as being able to use it with 3 different devices by simply pressing the switching buttons. The same is true, by the way, for the mouse. I do also keep a magic trackpad on my desk because swiping gestures really do have productivity benefits on a Mac. The trackpad is cradled by a walnut tray by Grovemate, and everything sits on a felt mat, also by Grovemate. Not only does it tie all the peripherals together nicely, it also makes a pleasant mouse mat. Now, you'll probably have noticed that I'm not using a Grovemate desk shelf. I removed it because I don't like the way it looks with the Apple Studio display. But it now serves as an actual shelf on the L-shaped part of my desk, where we find a few more accessories. My trusty Fujitsu scanner helps me stay paperless, scans everything from receipts to full stacks of double-sided paper. Next to it, there is this charging stand by Pitaka, which is really cool because Pitaka found a way to make the iPad charge wirelessly. I told you earlier that I keep a case on the iPad Pro with an integrated USB port. Well, that is because that port is used to relay the charging to these smart connector dots on the back. So now, whenever I snap it onto the stand, it charges. Super useful, And this new iPad Pro version comes with a removable USB-C plug, so you can use that port for other things when you're not using the charging stand. There's a Grove-made pen and some sticky notes. Yeah, I know, that's not exactly paperless, but we all need a sticky note from time to time. Next to that, you'll see an Amazon Alexa Show that I use mainly to monitor my Ring doorbell and some Eufy security cameras around the office. Lastly, there's a Mac Mini Pro hiding in the shelf, which is used for many things around the office, like live streams at my A-roll desk, testing new monitors, or when I forget my MacBook at home, which has happened more times than I'd like to admit. So guys, there you have it, my dream desk setup, or at least it is for now. I'm thinking about doing a full studio tour in the near future. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please give it one of these. It really does help the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next one.